Hello and welcome to Behind the Scenes, a podcast connected to Out of Frame. I'm your host, Sean Malone, creator of Out of Frame on YouTube and, of course, the creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education. Here today in studio with Paul Nelson, our head of social media and also Out of Frame Shorts editor. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Doing well.
And then, of course, on the TV screen or the screen next to me or whatever you want to call it, we've got Jennifer Mofasanti, who's the Director of Communications at the Libertas Institute in Utah. How are you doing, Jen?
Very beautiful background
I'm doing
today.
great.
It's just a lovely, it's a new
you.
background, I feel like, from Jen, although she revealed her secrets, which is that it's the same
She turned around.
location, just turned around. But it looks very, very
Yep.
nice. And I like it. You do have a clock. It's a lot of clock.
Yes.
But now I'll know the
Well,
time.
you know.
Well, I'll know the time in Utah in any case. Which doesn't help me a whole lot here. But yeah, it's great to be here with you guys. We didn't really prep a lot of like pre-show kind of stuff as far as like anything that you guys are watching or paying attention to. So I'm just going to jump right in to the core theme or core movie that we're going to discuss on this episode, which is Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk and written by the folks who wrote John Wick. Directed by somebody who's like never directed anything before, pretty much. So that's kind of interesting to me, actually. Like, it's directed by Ilya Naishuller, and I have no idea if I'm saying that name correctly, and of course written by Derek Kolstad. But I went to Ilya's IMDb, and there's not a whole lot. The only thing, and I think this is probably relevant, is Hardcore Henry, which you may remember from a few years ago. I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but it's like what I just called when it came out, first-person shooter the movie. It is literally, it's shot from a first-person vantage, and it is, yeah, I mean, as I described it, it's first-person shooter the movie. It's a crazy, wild, like very action-filled, insane, film that's just wall to wall, but it's all from like GoPros attached to the actors, or the one actor, really, the lead actor. So it's pretty crazy. So he had a little bit of chops doing, directing action, but in a very, very, very different style. And this was, pretty much the first big American production he's done, as far as I can tell. Outside of that, and I don't even know if Hardcore Henry was directed. I don't even think it was an American film officially. I think it might have been a German film. But in any case, yeah, kind of a nobody directing this movie. But I loved it. I don't know if you guys want to get into it yet. I mean, if you got other stuff you want to talk about, we can. But we're definitely going to get into this movie.
Yeah.
And we're going to spoil a little bit because there's some things that we can't avoid. I don't think it's possible to really spoil, though. I think it's in that category.
There are Russians that need their butt kicked.
Russian bad guys, as always.
So you could assume what happens from there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, are we ready to just jump right in? I mean, you want to just do it that way?
Can I
Oh, yeah.
throw in a quick plug?
Yeah.
If you haven't yet,
Yeah.
sign up for the Out of Frame newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
So as you guys are well aware, YouTube is
Not awesome.
not
sometimes.
great. They have been, it's pretty blatant that we get demonetized, which we don't really necessarily care about demonetization, but it limits what the algorithm shows to people.
Right.
So that then limits our views, limits our engagement, and showing these ideas to people. So we thought, let's put together a newsletter so we get around that algorithm and get you what the info that you guys need in a timely manner. So you're not like, oh, where did these 3 episodes come from?
Yep.
We'll be letting you know. But that's not it. We got all kinds of other great content going to be in these newsletters. So it's not just hey, go watch this.
Yeah.
No, there's actually going to be some really good content you can only get in the newsletter. So head on over to
fee.org/OOF-newsletter.
And sign up.
Oof
newsletter.
newsletter. Oof. Which people made fun of. People when I posted this in YouTube community, they're like, oof. And I'm like, yeah, but that's actually how it gets referred to
Internally
all the time. Like pretty much everybody.
It's hard to say out of frame a lot.
It is hard to say it a lot. And it's oof. Except for I usually capitalize it. Some people don't, though. Some people just
capital O, little lowercase o
all the time. But I'm amused by it, so I just let it go. And now we put it in the newsletter. So here it is. Yeah, to Paul's point too, like it's not just demonetizations, because sometimes we've got that from, videos that YouTube defines as like advertiser unfriendly, but also we've had some age restrictions too, and those are the ones that really like I think are bizarre to me, because I've gotten age restrictions on things like my video on The Legend of Korra or whatever, which is like
it's a kid's show.
And yeah, we talk about what I hope are interesting issues that are relevant to the real world, and that we're talking about stuff that's actually kind of important to talk about. But we try to avoid showing anything super graphic or talking about things using language that wouldn't be appropriate for basically all audiences. So I just, it's gotten to a point where like I started rating, because YouTube actually allows you, the creator, to rate your own content and say whether or not it's for all audiences or just for kids or whatever, and or just for adults. And according to YouTube, I've gotten it wrong enough times that they give me a warning message. They literally pop up a little warning every time I post a new video that says, are you sure you've rated this correctly as being for all audiences or advertiser friendly? And I'm like, yeah, I am actually personally very sure of this. YouTube disagrees, and then, we get flagged. And it's gotten super annoying, so we're trying to make our way through that a little bit, trying to figure out how to solve those problems. But the newsletter is, I think it's going to be exciting no matter what. I think it's something that we just launched, and it's already got a few hundred subscribers to it. So we're kind of, moving in that direction. I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah, it should be fun. So go subscribe.
Yeah.
Share it.
Yeah.
It'll be good stuff.
And then, by the way, also, I'll give another little plug for Discord, because we're having a great time on Discord, and I think that the Discord channel is growing a lot. I've been a little bit MIA the last few days, or maybe week or so, because I've been super busy, but I still try to get up in there and, talk to people and connect with people on Discord. So, and I know you guys do too. So, if you guys are interested in communicating with us a little bit more directly, Discord's a great way to do it. Yeah. Loving it. But yeah, let's talk about Nobody. Jen, what did you think of Nobody? First, just very first impressions before we even get into the plot or anything.
Very first impressions, like the opening scene. I thought, oh my God, this is just going to be John Wick with a different cast, isn't it? But then we got past the opening scene, and I realized that that's not what this was. And it was one of the more enjoyable movies I've seen this year. Like, no joke. It was tight. It was well edited. The music in the movie, not the score necessarily, but like the needle drops were on point. Like, they were great.
I'm ready to talk about that.
And it was low key one of the funnier movies I've seen in a very long time.
I agree with that, Paul.
Yeah.
Your turn.
So for me, this movie, it's different than John Wick, but it's basically John Wick, which is fine. John Wick is fantastic, and this movie is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. For me, though, my viewing experience was something I wanted to talk about.
Ooh, yeah.
So when we first decided to watch this, I started looking around, pricing things out, price signals, and guess what happened? It turned out going to a theater and sitting down in a theater was the cheapest option. So what did I do?
Went to a theater.
I went to a theater, and when I arrived there, guess what it said on the door? Masks optional.
Oh, wow.
So I walked on in there.
What, like AMC or?
Regal.
Regal.
Walked on in there, sat down. I mean, there was nobody else in the theater, so it didn't matter.
Very optional. Very, very optional.
It's fine. But it just kind of blew my mind. And I'm like, this is not bad.
That's fantastic.
So the viewing experience was great for me because it's action on the big screen.
Oh, yeah.
Just, I mean, can't really beat a theater experience. Yeah. So I enjoyed it a lot.
So this is the big news for me, and I've talked to you guys about it before, but a little bit. But like, so I moved recently, and I moved to a much bigger house to accommodate more people, and just a whole thing about doing that. But one of the things that I was really like very intentional about is, although this has come together way better than I expected, to be honest, is for me version 1.0 of true home theater. And so about a month ago, I bought a really good 4K projector, and I already had the most of a very, very good multi-point surround system, but I expanded on it to a 7.1 system. So those are the first two things that I did. But as of literally today, while we're recording this, my screen arrived. So I'm going to go home. I probably won't get to it tonight because I probably need to get some work done before whatever. But this weekend, I will be moving the projector against the wall to a ceiling mounted projector on a 100-inch plus screen, which I am so excited about.
That's going to be awesome.
But even without the screen, I got to tell you, like the viewing experience, like for what I'm doing now, is already top notch, and so I'm having just a blast, which is great because for me, I couldn't find a theatrical screening anywhere, like within anywhere near me. So like some of the theaters near me, like there's a Regal that's fairly close to me, but it's only open 3 days a week right now.
Yeah.
So that's an issue. There's an AMC that's open like all the time, but it wasn't screening nobody. So I watched it at home, but it was good. It was good. And I'm looking forward to amping the quality up a little bit more here, and just basically by the end of this weekend.
So what are you going to watch first to break in the new screen?
Well, so the very first thing that I put on the projector, which again was towards the wall, was actually Blade Runner 2049.
Great choice.
Because visually that movie is
criminally underrated,
absolutely stunning. Yep. One of my favorite, like I think Deakins did that movie too, right? And because he did.
I'm pretty sure he did that one.
I think he did both.
We might need to fact check on that.
I might have to fact check that. But in any case, you know what? No, I think he did. In any case, even if I'm wrong, whoever did that,
it was great,
phenomenal. So that was great. And then I think the first like movie that because then I just kind of had it on in the background while I was like setting up a bunch of stuff. I actually had it running before I had the sound system together, so I just had it playing silently on the wall while I was building my sound system out. And then the first movie that I actually like watched, which may seem like a weird choice, Pacific Rim actually was the first like.
That'd be a fun one though.
It was fun. I Pacific Rim is sort of middling in the Rotten Tomatoes score, but I kind of love it.
And the Sean Tomato score?
No, it's pretty high on that one actually. And by the way, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, Guillermo del Toro did a director's commentary on Pacific Rim that is absolutely spectacular. Like totally worth listening to throughout the film, because he was like basically explaining why he made every single choice, and he was very, very clear about his color palette, like what he was doing with scale in terms of the monsters, and that movie handles scale immaculately, and I just thought it would be a super fun movie to like, kind of blow up. There are a few things that I want to get to at some point that are going to be, more time commitments. Lord of the Rings is one that I want to, get through, but that's a solid 12 hours that I'm going to have to dedicate some effort to. And I got some friends who have not really seen any of the Marvel movies, and we're gonna do a whole thing. I've got another friend. We've got a mutual friend who will surprise you.
Chid's face,
who's never seen Harry Potter. We have a
Wait,
mutual
what?
friend. We have a mutual friend who's never seen Harry Potter. Who?
You know what?
It's too inside for everybody, but I'm just going to say her name. Michelle has never seen Harry Potter.
What?
Yeah.
Has she read the books?
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, don't let her watch the movies.
No, we got to do it.
Don't let her watch the movies.
We got to do it. I don't know. Anyway,
You gotta.
we're going to get through all this stuff. I've got a lot. I got a lot lined up here. But anyway, I watched Nobody in like sort of a proto version of the system.
Beta version.
Like, I don't even want to call it 1.0 because it didn't have the screen. But now I'm going to have the screen. That's 1.0. When we're eventually we want to build a house, that's going to be 2.0. And 2.0 is going to be even better. But
knock your socks off.
But for now, this is pretty good. Anyway, that was a long detour to get back around to. I had a great time with this movie. And I was with Jen a little bit at the beginning. It felt like it was a little bit of a slow start for me. That said, I liked how they handled the character setup. I liked Bob Odenkirk plays nobody. He plays a man who has settled into, and very clearly settled into, a pretty boring routine life. There are a lot of things played for comedy in that opening scene. It's his existence is just constant, exactly the same every day. And so they even went through just very fast cuts, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they just went through the week where every single day, he gets up, he goes for a run, he works out a little bit, he goes to, he gets his coffee, goes to work. Well, misses the
trash
day on Tuesdays, like every week. Which, by the way, if your husband has missed trash day for 9 consecutive Tuesdays in a row, just take the trash out. Just do it.
Or remind him on Monday.
Or, remind him maybe just to do it on Monday night would be a good choice. Just get it out there the night before. Just saying.
I mean, you're going to save yourself a lot of arguing.
It's true.
Let's be honest.
It played for laughs and it was pretty funny. But still, I was like, there are solutions to this problem.
Yes.
There are easy solutions. But, anyway, it's pretty boring. But he gets to a point where one night some burglars break in and they threaten him at gunpoint and take some cash off the table or off the little bowl on the table. They really don't do a lot.
Nope.
His son tackles them at one point and he thinks he's going to he kind of looks like he's going to do something, but it ends up choosing not to. And the burglars get away with his watch and a little bit of cash and what he thinks is a kitty bracelet, assumes. Yeah. And then he just decides he's had enough, pretty much. So the next time he goes to find these burglars. I'm spoiling things already here. He goes to try to find these burglars, succeeds, decides to kind of let them go. But then he gets on a bus, like a public bus, and some Russians get on the bus and harass all the other patrons on the bus. And he decides he is going to, I can't even say the words. He's going to expletive them up.
Yep.
And that's what he does.
That is
for pretty much in a very John Wicky sort of way for the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. He's had it. He's done. He's done with his quiet, boring life. He
just needed that one little push, and it was the kitty cat bracelet.
Yeah. That scene, too, by the way. Like, the only person in his entire life who cares about him is his little, 6-year-old daughter or whatever. Like, his wife, it's routine and stale and boring.
Yeah.
And his son his teenager son doesn't respect him at all. But, man, that little girl
loves him.
So when she's like, Dad, can you find my bracelet? Where's my bracelet, Dad? It's on.
Yeah.
Which my wife turned to me at that point. She's like, man, if this movie is just about a kitty cat bracelet.
I mean, it kind of is.
And it was.
Which is hilarious. I mean, it is very John Wick in that sense. I mean, I don't want to say that I don't think that's a negative, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I will say, in the same way that John Wick is a man who has chosen to exit a life of violence and then is brought back into it through a pretty, well, I mean, very similar situation in a lot of ways, but also just like through a singular, very personal event. It's similar. Like this is a man who, but I think the difference though is like with John Wick. Well, first of all, they don't take as much time. I think John Wick gets right back into it. I think a little faster. If I had to bet, it's hard to say because the way that John Wick opens is pretty.
He went right back into it.
He went right back into it, but the emotional part of it, I think, is shorter. I think we get to meet John Wick basically right at the moment that his wife has died, and then the scene with the puppy doesn't take all that long.
No,
I feel like so. You're maybe 10, 15 minutes into the movie and he's back. He's back. He's in. I think this is probably more like 2025 before he's really back in, but
it worked because
it worked.
You were building up what it did, even though the beginning, I love the beginning. I'm a little bit different than you guys.
I don't dislike it. I just thought it was a little slow. I didn't quite know where it was headed.
So looking back on it, I think the opening sequence of his life to him being kind of meaningless, and not knowing what to do. I mean, it's pretty something a lot of people could see in that character.
Yeah,
and that slow build, what this movie's about.
Oh yeah.
So that slow burn of getting there, of him going to that tattoo shop, and looking like, oh, it's about to go down. And then somebody sees just the very top of his tattoo on his wrist and says, "Nope."
Yep, that was a great.
Okay, so you delayed the violence another 2 minutes.
Right.
So then he goes to the house of the burglars, and you're like, "Oh, he's gonna."
Nope.
They have a baby that has medical issues. He just lets it go.
Yeah.
And so it defers this need for violence for so long, but it does it so effectively because he doesn't want to do it, but
That's
at the
true.
same time he does. But then after he starts the violence, he wants it.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where he goes into the Russians' club.
Yeah.
Because naturally the Russian owns a club, and basically it tells him, "I just ruined your entire business," and walks out.
Yeah.
And he sits there and crosses his fingers, hoping he follows them out.
Yeah.
And he does, and he gets his wish. They build it perfectly, and it is hilarious. The violence is brutal, but it's grounded. It's not. He gets his butt kicked, but he also uses his history and his smarts, not just his pure strength and ability to kick butt.
Yeah. No, he does, okay. So also, again, we're gonna spoil it. There's a lot about this movie. We can spoil details of this movie, and I think we'll try to be judicious about it. But at the same time, you can't. This is it's kind of an unspoilable movie. I mean, again, the plot is so simple. The plot is so straightforward. A man who has a boring kind of overlooked existence. I can't say he loses control. He regains control. Right. In a very violent, bloody, aggressive sort of way.
Everyone discounts him. His wife, his brother-in-law, his father-in-law.
He's
his
working
son,
which, by the way,
neighbor.
I gotta say, Michael Ironside.
Yeah.
I'm not really one to talk in this particular moment in my life, but he got real fat in this movie.
He
was like Brian Dennehy for me. like I don't mean that. I mean, like, I saw him and I was like, "Who is that?" And then I was like, and I turned to my wife. I'm like, "Is that Michael Ironside?" She's like, "Yeah, I saw his name in the credits." And I'm like, "What?" Because to me, I just think Michael Ironside in Total Recall or in Starship Troopers, and like that's who but everybody gets old also, so he's a lot. He's probably in his 70s now, and I don't.
Father Time is undefeated.
He's earned it at this point.
It's world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was great, but he played his father-in-law who owns a machine shop of some kind. I'm not really sure what they do, but and then he's got a brother-in-law who's just kind of an idiot. but none of them really respect him, and which is kind of weird because he's the accountant for the company. And
I think the father kind of respects him, but
his father does,
but not in a manly.
No, but his father seems to. I mean, his father's okay. So Christopher Lloyd is in this movie.
Are you talking about Michael Ironside?
Well, I was originally talking about Michael Ironside. Yeah, okay. I'll say he kind of respect him, but only in the context of like being the accountant for the business and being a reliable person. Yeah, but he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't respect his like manly, abilities or physical prowess or any of that kind of stuff. He's good to his daughter. Yeah, good enough, right? Christopher Lloyd though plays Bob Odenkirk's character's dad, like actual dad. Right. Oh, just the best.
It was unexpected.
Fantastic. He's got.
It was amazing.
Again, I'm going to try to be a little coy about this, but when the family comes together, which is really Bob Odenkirk's family coming together at the end of the movie, it's just. It's ridiculous and it's great and it's like a crazy riot of like a little bit Home Alone violence, like a little bit of like makeshift like
Home Alone violence if the violence in Home Alone was real.
Oh yeah, if the violence actually did what it would do. Yeah. I mean it was super fun. I mean that especially just getting to see Christopher Lloyd with shotguns and just
yeah. Where we're going, we don't need barrels. Saw 'em off.
The bit where he's living in a nursing home, and he's like making a lot of noise at one point. And the orderly comes down and it's like he's got his TV turned up. And he's like, "Oh, keep it down."
Watching a Western.
It's like okay. But no, I had a great time. This is really, I mean, I think as Jen mentioned too, like this is probably one of the better just movie experiences I've had this year so far. I mean, it's, I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to it a little bit earlier, to be honest.
I mean, it came out late March.
I think that's about right.
Just never really, until we decided to do it for the show, I was like, oh, that would be fun. But it's John Wick, so no, it's worth it. Yeah. Definitely worth it.
Yeah, I agree. So we're trying to figure out like what, like from an out of frame standpoint, like what we would talk about. And this one's a little tough. Like this is one that I probably wouldn't do an episode on because I don't know that there's enough meat there in terms of like philosophical ideas or anything that I could sort of extract out of it. The one thing that does come up, and Jen brought this up, is so, and this is the major spoiler, turns out he was a former CIA
accountant.
Auditor. Which he said he's the person you really don't want to see. He's somebody who will go and clean up messes. And because he can have no records, and there can be no records of the things, he usually would make sure that there was nothing left to find, basically. And so that was an interesting twist, a little bit of an interesting twist on the John Wick side of things, because it's the government side of you've got the mob boss on the one hand, and then you've got the U.S. government on the other side, and yet they're basically the same, doing very similar things. I mean,
when you put it that way.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only thing that really stands out to me is the CIA part of it. And of course, that's heightened as well, because I think a lot of my friends even might be surprised to hear me say this, but in reality, the CIA is probably a heck of a lot more boring than people give it credit for. The movies have made the CIA seem like really fun, weird, awesome, spy craft, but honestly, mostly it's paper pushers and it's very boring.
It's the guy that got blackmailed into finding the files on nobody for the Russian mob.
Yeah, actually, that's a good reference because there is a guy who's actually in the government that one of the mob people has in their pocket or whatever. And yeah, it's a guy sitting at a computer looking at files. Just like, ugh.
Boring.
Or doing world reports and analysts, a lot of analysts, and of course a lot of listening, a lot of
yes, lots of listening.
Yeah, a lot of privacy violations. But Anyway, Jen, I don't know. I mean, did you find, like, I mean, from that standpoint, I guess we can talk about this a bit, but like, did you find that to be, I don't know. I guess I'll just leave it open and say, like, what about the CIA part of it was kind of interesting or most relevant to you?
Well, it was interesting to me because the specific example that Hutch is the character's name
Yeah,
for
yeah. Sorry, I don't think we've
Bob
said that yet.
Odenkirk.
Odenkirk.
Yeah, whatever. People's names are not great for me. Anyway, so this character, the specific example that he gives of like the work that he has done on behalf of the United States government is he was in Italy, just killing people apparently. Like some guy had embezzled like a lot of money and he hunted him down and had him on his knees with a gun to his head, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, in Italy? This is a country that the United States is supposed to have really good relations with.
Yeah.
And yet it wouldn't shock me in the least if something like that was going on.
Yeah.
Just individual fixers who go around and just solve problems that otherwise are too much of a hassle to solve through the usual and appropriate channels. So, I don't know, it struck me as a bit interesting. Like, that was an interesting choice for that.
You think was it interesting to you because like you would have thought that it would have gone more the mob direction, or just because like the way that they kind of handled it was not like there was nothing above board about the stuff he was apparently doing for the U.S. government. Like they didn't even try to be like
very illegal.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't even like I'm going around the world like killing terrorists or whatever. It's really just like government wants me to go handle any problem. I will go out and
handle it.
Doesn't matter anywhere in the world. National sovereignty, who cares? None of that matters. I mean, the thing is like with stuff like that, I mean, there's always a lot of these things that come out in declassified documents like years and years later. And so, I mean, there are clearly examples of these things happening. There are clearly examples of people from the CIA meddling in all sorts of things, from Iranian and Afghani politics to, Latin American politics. Like there's all kinds of stuff in there. Now, again, I will go back to what I said before. I think the vast majority of it is pretty boring by comparison. I think the vast majority of it is people, trying to collect information on, political leaders or drug cartel members or whatever. And a lot of it is just them befriending bad people and trying to extract whatever kinds of information they can extract. Some of it's also like, giving money to one side of a conflict or the other side of a conflict. Most of the time, as far as I can tell, that stuff goes badly for everyone. Like it doesn't work for the U.S. any more than it works out for the people locally. I mean, I think Latin America is filled with those examples. Or again, the Iran-Contra stuff, or arming the Mujahideen and all of that kind of stuff in Afghanistan. Like it never really goes the way that is planned exactly. But it's also very little of it seems to be these kinds of things. Although that said, would any of this stuff ever be declassified? Right? I have no idea. So I try not to be very conspiratorial about that kind of stuff, but at the same time, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me a ton.
No.
But that said, this guy was invincible, pretty much.
Just fixing things.
I will say, this is back to the movie part of it, and I mentioned this to Paul a little bit before we started, but like the one thing for me, and this is one of my only criticisms of this movie, one of my sort of negatives of this movie, is the first time he kind of engages in violence on the bus. He is not great at it. Like he's better than most of us, let's be honest. But he gets hurt a lot in that sequence. He does have, unlike John Wick, he does have a little bit of time to heal. So that's probably good for him. But yeah, for the most part, that I thought, like in context of the rest of the movie where he becomes basically superhuman, like I feel like that one was a little weird because it's like, oh, I don't know. Is he that, like I thought he was going to be really good at this, and then he gets like punched in the face right away. And I'm like, huh, maybe he's not that good at this.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe he
well,
is.
you know,
Maybe
he's out
he
of
is just a.
practice.
He is just a dad. It's like
He had to work himself back into it for sure.
He very much did. Yeah.
And you could. So that fight scene, I was surprised that he did get his butt kicked as much as he did.
Yeah.
But you could tell each time he came back onto the bus,
Yeah, he's got better.
it got better. And he I think it was also not just him knocking the rust off.
Yeah.
It was also him getting the it's okay to be this violent.
Yeah.
Because at the first he was just punching.
Yeah.
He wasn't there to kill.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
kept escalating.
Yeah.
And then it led to where it led.
Yeah. And I don't think he made a point about it this later. He didn't kill anybody in the bus. He left everybody alive. Very, very badly hurt in many cases. But you know, again, it's in the context of these kinds of things, because this is very Death Wish in a lot of ways, right? Like this is very like Charles Bronson, you know, I'm gonna go, you know, beat up bad people as a means of catharsis or whatever, you know. But all the bad people were pretty bad.
Yeah.
You know, and he wasn't, and then this is another thing about it that's kind of interesting, is that he had no personal motive. Like by which I mean he did not want something from them. He just wanted them to be gone, basically. I mean, even the bad guys that he ended up really fighting were not the burglars.
Right.
You know, like he already handled that problem and decided that they weren't really worth. He got his watch back, you know. I don't even want to spoil whether or not he gets back the kitty bracelet, because that just the scene for me where that issue gets resolved is just too amusing for me. I think everybody should just experience it. But the people that he ends up fighting, like the Russian mob, has nothing to do with his issue with his family or with the burglar, or I mean that's not any of that. It's just that it happens to be connected to the people on the bus. But the people on the bus, he initiated the escalation anyway. You know, like he was the one who decided he was going to engage in violence instead of just let them be idiots and then leave the bus at some point, you know, which they probably would have done, because it's kind of boring for people to harass somebody who's, you know, like one person on the bus is left at this point. And if she left, then that'd be pretty much it for them for that night. So he probably could have left it alone, or at least she could have gotten, you know, helped her get off the bus. And then these Russian kids would have just gone home at some point, you know. But he didn't want to. He wanted to right a wrong. And then that escalates, and he continues. But then it ends up taking down like an entire wing of the Russian mob. So there's that. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me. Like he didn't have like John Wick at least has direct connections to everybody who's involved. But this is just a guy who's had enough.
Snapped. Midlife crisis.
I don't know. Anyway, I feel like final thoughts are almost unnecessary here, but I will go around the room here. Like, Paul, would you recommend Nobody?
Yes, I would definitely recommend Nobody. It was fun, and
It was super fun.
I'm not a huge fan of ultra-violent movies. Is just doesn't really do it for me. But this does there are some scenes that are pretty brutal, but it does a good job of just reining some of the really over the top stuff in.
Yeah.
There's a couple scenes where it's just like, okay, whatever.
It is a very violent movie.
But by then you're desensitized to it. So
this is a hard R.
yes.
Probably
Yes.
don't let your kids see it
Yes.
if you got
But
kids.
it's fun. It's a good movie.
But if you're 17 and up,
Yeah.
go for it. Jen?
My hot take is that I like Nobody more than I like John Wick.
Ooh, bold.
And that's high praise from me. I think that Nobody is actually objectively a better film. And it is funny in all of the right places. It's shocking in all of the right places. It's action packed, it's tight, it's clean. It's just a great movie, and I have already recommended it to people that I know. So
I
you go watch it too.
I'll have to rewatch John Wick to make a call on whether or not I liked it more. But I will absolutely recommend it very, very highly to everybody who's, okay with violence. But also, I'm kind of looking forward to a sequel, which it seems highly likely.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd and his brother were going somewhere.
Oh, also no, I'm not even going to spoil. The very, very sort of, I think it might be a post-credit scene with a realtor, I'll just say.
Mm.
There's a little bit more.
Yes.
They're setting it up.
Oh, yeah.
We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm sure all the mobsters who had an interest in
the Oak Shack.
The Oak Shack, yeah.
There's others. There's more Russians.
There's a lot more Russians, which, by the way, I always think is kind of hilarious because Russians are kind of the only bad guys we can have anymore. But the director seems to have been Russian also, so there's that part of it. But anyway, speaking of Russians, our producer, Pavel, who is indeed Russian, sent me a correction. Not Deacons for 2049. It was Jordan Cronenweth and Brian Tufano who did. But my apologies for getting that wrong, but still phenomenal.
Yeah, they did great
stuff. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. If you're listening on, iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening, we love that you're doing that. If you want to see, if you are only listening to us, realize that we do have a YouTube channel for this podcast. And if you're seeing us right now, thank you so much for watching on the channel, and thanks for supporting us that way. Hopefully you've subscribed to Out of Frame on, YouTube and Instagram and everything else. But if you want to support us even more, check us out on Patreon or Subscribestar, patreon.com/OutOfFrameShow. or subscribestar.com/OutOfFrameShow. And if you do that, you'll not only get swag and access to private channels on our Discord and, our undying love, you will also get a bonus section of this podcast. So if you are already a subscriber and supporter that way, stick around and we'll answer some of your most interesting questions. And if you're not, then thank you so much for watching or listening, and we will see you next time.